This has got to be one of the biggest pleasant surprises of the entire summer for me. I watched the trailers for this movie. I was mildly interested. Tom Cruise in a sci-fi action movie. Of course, sign me up. I know I'll at least be mildly interested. Like Oblivion, that was okay. Tom Cruise sci-fi action movie. This is not Oblivion. This totally blew my expectations away. This is so much better than the trailers let on, and they really nail this story. The reason that he's looping throughout, the reason that he's in this time loop, plays into the story really, really well. Like, you know, in Groundhog Day, they don't really explain how he's stuck in this time loop, but in this movie, they do go into why he's stuck in this time loop and what's causing it, and that plays a big part in the story. And the story is what's really driving this movie. They're not just moving from action set piece to action set piece. The action is really just a garnish that's sprinkled over this really, really interesting story of him figuring out why he's stuck in this time loop, how to get out, how to win the war. And there is a lot of action in this movie, but the story is far more interesting than the action, even though the action is really, really solid. This is one of those movies that you really it needs to be seen in theaters, or seeing it in theaters is going to add to it, because there's huge set pieces, and it's a big story, and going to the theater I think will really add to the experience. Not all movies, you know, that come out in theaters really need to be in theaters, but this is a true theater experience, so definitely go see it in theaters. But what they do really well is they capture the whole Groundhog Day with Bill Murray situation. It transfers so nicely into this alien war backdrop, and it plays very well in that setting. One of the things that Groundhog Day also did well is they really fleshed out all the implications of what somebody living the same day over and over would do. And so, you know, Bill Murray, you know, he basically does anything and everything in that day, and Tom Cruise really has to do. They really flesh out in this story anything that you can possibly think about somebody living the same day over and over again would do. Tom Cruise does. He goes there and he does those things, and they do an excellent job at writing it. And you see the same things over and over again, but the cinematography and the editing is so well done that, you know, they rush through the things that you've already seen, but they also shoot the scenes from different angles and perspectives whenever you're seeing the same thing over again, and it feels like you're seeing the same thing again but from a different angle, kind of like how Tom Cruise is seeing the same thing but from the perspective of having just lived through it just right before that. And so it's a nice visual cue to visually let you feel like this is the same thing, but it's now different because we've been here before. And it really does it excellently. And one of the things that the trailers also doesn't capture is the humor in this. There's quite a bit of humor throughout, and it's pretty subtle, and it's more situational humor. Like, you know, oh, this is funny because, you know, Tom Cruise already knows what's going to happen, or stuff like that. But they're never hitting you over the head like, you know, hey, laugh because you already know what's going to happen. No, it's very subtle, and it's very, very well done. And they never try to go too funny, and they never try to go too serious. Because, I mean, they're pretty serious themes in the movie, you know, about they're trying to save the world, obviously. But they strike a nice balance in between there. Another thing they strike a nice balance with is Emily Blunt's character, because she looked like she might have been, they might have gotten her a little wrong, but she totally nails it, and the way she's written is just perfect. A lot of times when you have these female characters like in battle or something, they kind of go too far, and they make them like over masculine, and they can't do anything wrong, and they're just kind of like they're pretty much just another guy basically. Or they go the opposite route and they make them like over effeminate, and they're basically just like someone that needs to be saved, you know. And this movie really strikes a nice balance between the two, and she aside from the slight romance that's going on, she almost could have, her character could have been a guy. That's how well her character was written. And so they really nail Emily Blunt's character. Tom Cruise, they actually have pretty good chemistry. And the interesting thing to see is Tom Cruise's, her character basically doesn't change because he's seeing her the same day every day. But Tom Cruise, his character, where he ends up at in this movie is not where he begins at, and he's very different than the typical Tom Cruise that we see. This movie starts out, he's no Ethan Hunt, and he's not the usual hardcore action hero that we see. He's very, very different than that, and it's nice to see him transition, and the transition is so seamless. Like, you really just feel his character learning and growing throughout the movie, and it's great to see where he ends up from where he started. Just so excellent, so excellent. So I really, really enjoyed this movie. I think you should go see it. The story is incredible. The action is great. The aliens look like balls of hair caught in like a blender. They're just like flopping around everywhere. That was really interesting to see too, because they don't have faces, and so the aliens are just kind of like these, almost like organic. It's almost like it's like a organic, like a thinking plant or something. That they don't look like that. They just feel like that. Like they're just kind of organic organisms that are just trying to kill people, and it's really cool. So definitely check this one out. If you've seen it, what did you think? Do you feel like it needs to be seen in theaters? Do you feel like it's going to get the recognition that you think it should get? Tell me what you think in the comments below, and I will see you next time.